We see a lot of these on this show, and whenever you walk past them or you drive past them, don't know if you're like me, you go, what is in these? Well, in the case of today, we're in Romford in Essex, and we've come to see this garage, this exact garage here, because this garage has been closed for decades. And it turns out there's a car in it that has been claimed because nobody actually knows who owns it. And it hasn't been out of there, we think, in perhaps 40 years. The car is a proper Essex car. It's a full Cortina, but it's a Mk1 Cortina. And today we're going to pull it out, see what it's like, and I am not going to promise to strike it up, but who knows? I don't even know if it's got an engine in it, frankly. But the fleece is on because this is a barn find edition of the Late Break Show. I'm Jonny Smith. This is Paul. Paul got in contact, and thank you for getting in contact with the Late Break Show.
Pleasure.
To say, I watched these episodes and I think I've got something for you in a lockup in Romford. Yeah. So run me through the scenario.
It's been my property for many years. I've never lived here, investment.
Yeah.
This was, someone approached me through the managing agent. I want to rent the garage 20 something years ago. Never met him, never saw him. Then he ceased paying money for it a couple of 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I've pursued him, tried to find him. So
he's disappeared.
Disappeared. Doesn't communicate, so I took possession, as one is allowed to, and I had to photograph it to make sure I wasn't stealing things. And therein was a Mk1 Cortina and a lot of other stuff.
I was going to say, so Mk1 Cortina covered in paraphernalia.
It is. There's some strange things in there. We shall see.
Yeah, so you haven't delved in deep. You've just had to take pictures for
legal reasons.
I've seen a picture of the front of the car, a load of hoarded stuff, and I said to Paul, please don't touch it, wait for me, and you have kindly. So today we are going to pull out all the stuff and see what the car's like. We don't really know much about it, apart from the fact you've applied to be the legal owner of it.
I've got legal title. It's a 1.2 as far as I can tell.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Okay. Let's have a look. It's amazing. Thanks to television magic and organisation, Paul has brought a cordless drill, because we've got to take these battens off the door and then we're going to have a look. So let's do it. Let's do it. Now clearly, Paul, you're into cars.
Hugely.
Was this quite exciting for you to go, oh my gosh?
Anything to do with a car is...
But like a car that's not shit? As in an interesting car?
Oh, it would be interesting.
Because you've probably seen some rubbish cars over the years.
I've had 58 cars in my name.
What claimed?
My on a V5, cars. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a bit of an addict.
Ever had a Cortina before?
Mk3.
Have you?
As per last week's.
As per the previous. This is weird, right? I'll just mention this before we undo the... Within 3 or 4 weeks of you contacting me to say I've got this Cortina you might be interested in a shed, I had 2 other people, one of which was the Mk3 Cortina that you might have seen as a barn find. I'll put a link above my head. But there's also a Mk2 Cortina that I haven't filmed yet, that I've got to make arrangements with. So it's like a Mk1, then a Mk2, then a Mk3, all came in just like bang, bang, bang. What is going on?
Coming back into fashion.
They've all just come out of the, not woodwork, well there is woodworm. A bit of woodwork. Yeah, they've all come out of the woodworm. As you were.
My favourite bit.
I do love an old school garage, so shall we? Is this going to fall off by the way?
You've got to be careful, I think, because all the wires are gone.
Oh yeah, it is wobbly, isn't it? Oh bloody hell, it is wobbly. Oh my god. Someone's got a fetish for outboard motors.
They have. I think they're called seagull motors, are they? I believe.
And guess who I grew up with who's obsessed with seagull outboard motors? My brother, Greg. You're wrongin'. You're not having them.
So I've already had someone said they want a seagull, so I'll save one for them.
Save a seagull?
Save a seagull.
There's loads of parts, you were just saying actually, Paul, some of it you can see is Cortina related.
Yep.
There's a wing there, a chair, some panels, but there's a lot of other paraphernalia. So we'll have a bit of chat, but we've got a lot of work to do. So this is the bit. This is the bit where the hoarder in me is riddled with temptation. Anything I think that could be Cortina, I'll put that way.
Oh look, RS.
Oh, yeah. Now that's nice, a 4-spoke. That's very nice. Oh, it's murky down there. Weber.
What's
Cortina.
Definitely. A Nicky.
Oh, it's a Nicky carb. Someone's a bit of a carb hoarder.
We're already in 2 feet, and we've got how many carbs?
We've got that's at least 2 Webers, 1 Nicky, 1 Zenith. We sound like we're talking in Cockney rhyming slang.
Right, Zenith. I'm in a Zenith.
I'll give you 2 Nickies for 3 Zeniths. That's a Capri or a Consul Capri, I would say. Around the back window.
Yeah.
Capri, isn't it?
Probably someone's looking for that.
Yeah,
literally. 2 wings.
2 wings, pretty complete, bit frilly, but obviously good for repairs, I should think. Nice bonnet.
Hey.
A really, really solid bonnet, that, look. Leaves. It's an old heater.
There we go.
That's just shite.
Shite scrap. Another bonnet.
Is that another bonnet?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
That's
not
a boot lid.
That's a boot lid, yeah.
That's a Consul.
Yeah.
That's a Consul Capri.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, which I think those rear, that's a Consul Capri,
Yeah.
which is a rare car. Rarer car, actually.
Got a roof leak.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I want to say that's not Mark 1 Cortina. That is Escort.
It's got to be, isn't it? Size
I want
of
to
it.
say that's Mark 2 Escort. Looking at that,
Look in the mirror.
people will be shouting at the screen
Yeah.
now who know. So please forgive me if I get it wrong, but I reckon that's
Mark 1.
I reckon, well, Mark 2, Mark 1.
Look at the edge of it.
It's frilly as can be.
Yeah. Mark 1. No. That's no panel for it.
But that's a lovely bit of design. And I'm not familiar with it. Okay, I've got a little bit hot under my fleece now. There's an enormous amount of panels and parts, most of which I think are Cortina, but not all. But you just said there's some stuff at the back that's Cortina panels, new ones.
Yeah, new stock.
But let's have a look at the car. Let's take this off. I reckon we've got all the bikes out. On it. Now, that says Consul, which means it's an early car. That's what I remember. And if you haven't watched my car cave episode with the guy, Andy, who's obsessed with Cortinas, Lotus Cortinas, well worth a watch. If you haven't, I'll put it above my head now. Paul's climbed inside because the passenger door is unlocked. This door's not unlocked, so we're going to just see if we can have a look. Hello.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
It's all right.
It actually looks really nice in here. The fabric of the seats looks quite cool as well.
It's all right.
It doesn't smell appalling,
No.
does it? Doesn't smell appalling at all.
It's pretty good.
What does that say on the glove box? That say custom?
Cortina.
That says Cortina.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, what? We'll have a closer look when we're out in the daylight. We haven't got an ignition key for the car. However, I know from experience with old Fords that you can probably use a shed key and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
So we'll see if the tyres hold air. There is still stuff at the back. Don't know if you can see. There's still seats, centre console, which I'm sure is for a Cortina, glass, doors, but, and this is the thing that's freaked me out. Before we started filming today, me and Paul were chatting about this, that and the other. We were talking about Mark II Astras. And in here is an Astra GTE Mark II bonnet and new old stock rear arch and I think a wing. I'll tell you what, my mate, who I've known since college, who still has his Mark II Astra, Simon, I know you watch the show.
Give us a call.
Yeah, because I know you need these because you're restoring your Astra GTE, which is cool. We don't even know if it's got an engine. The car looks complete, actually. It actually looks better than I was expecting it to, considering the damp and the number of muddy foxes on it.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So it does have an engine. It's even. I mean, it's complete. It's got even got the colostomy bag screen wash, which is still full.
And he's disconnected the battery, helpfully, or it's broken off.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there it is. It is all complete, and again, it looks fairly.
Yeah.
It looks fairly solid. So all those spare panels could be for just in case, rather than I need them to restore this car.
He was a just in case man, wasn't he?
He might have been a just in case guy. All right, let's put the tyres up and let's pull it out. Right, tyres have all gone up. Didn't need a foot pump because our friend next door has got a compressor, a lot quicker. Access is tiny. We've attached a tow rope because I knocked it into neutral and although the handbrake's been off, brakes are seized. So we're hopefully going to just nudge it out into the light. So give it a tickle, Tim, just a little, just take the slack up. And the one day I really needed it, I left my tow rope at home, like a total flute. How good's your clutch?
There we go.
There we go. So the back's seized, look. The back's dragging like hell.
Partly because it's stuck here.
We all right on your side?
Yeah, handbrake's locked, but we're all right.
Yeah. Bit more. Okay. There we go.
Hey.
I think this thing's taken me by surprise really, condition-wise, because I was really expecting it to be a bit rotten or maybe in the process of being restored given all of these bits that were piled in and around it. I mean, you take the wings, for example, the wings aren't that bad. In fact, they're not bad at all, not along the top. Strut towers are really sound. The chassis, from we can see in the front, is good. Then you look at the sills. The sills look really good, actually. The floors under the carpets, we've looked under them, they're really good. The leading edges, bottom edges of the doors are really good. Leading edges of the bonnet and the boot, actually really good. I mean, I think it's had a repaint at some point and that's sort of turned into cellulite, which is probably from the damp garage. And yeah, the arch here, that's crusty, but I mean, that's so. That there and that there is really quite minor given how long it's probably sat for in the conditions it's sat. I'm pleasantly surprised. Yeah, if it was a two-door, it'd be worth a lot more, but this is an early car. A 1200 Super, early console badged car. It's remarkable. The thing that's puzzling me about this Cortina is it's in a sweaty old horrible garage, and when we pulled out all these parts, it looked like it was a car that had been bought for restoration and it needed a lot of the parts. But the more we look at it, the more we think it's actually a nice example. It's largely solid, and by that I mean I've just gone round and lifted a lot of the carpets up just to see what the condition of the floors are like and the sills are like, and it's surprisingly good. They're actually okay, and the the carpets seem to fit quite nicely in. Yeah, the upholstery's worn, but it's not terrible. I really like this sort of the gold cord around the edge and that distinctive V on the backrests. And I love the Bakelite steering wheel with these controls. It would have been such a modern, cool car for its time. There's a reason why there's such a strong following for early Cortinas. And this is a super. You've got the badges on the back wing. And I think this is different, but I'm not a Cortina aficionado, although I do know a man who is. If it's a solid example, and it's a right-hand drive car, and it's still got the original Ford radio, that would have been an option. That would have been an option. Is that a pair of underwear? That's a pair of knickers. Oh man, don't know how I feel about that. But I'm more interested in that. I'm pretty sure. Is that the one from the Pink Panther? Matchbox Automatics, is that? The Clipper. 1973. Oh, that's like the thing from the Pink Panther, the Anteater car. I prefer that to the Knickers. Yep, I do. But again, there's not that many signs of mice. Creepy as Hungry chimpanzee. I love this job. There's money, and I don't know if it's really old 1p pieces, but there's a few pennies. But again, right, lift the carpets and look, the floors are bright. This car has either had some level of resto or it's survived quite well, and it's been pushed into a really mucky, damp lockup, and against all odds, it's gone and bloody survived. Guess how we open the boot? Because we haven't got the keys to this car. That is the garage key that opens the garage. We just tried it on the boot and it just opens. Good old 60s Fords. Folds. So, well, this is interesting. We've got some new ancillaries like distributor cap. We've got some badges, but not from this car. That 1600E, that's a Mark II Cortina thing, right? We've got plugs, but it looks like, I had just a look under the engine bay, I think someone's recently fitted new plugs. They've obviously got that as a backup perhaps. There's a reasonably new coil. So either someone's doing preventative maintenance, so it drove in here and it was fine, it's just been left for some unknown reason, I don't know. But again, just like the floors of the car, the boot floor looks pretty good. There's loads of trim and all that stuff, it's just loads. Yeah, but there you go, look. The petrol tank's obviously, that's the petrol tank there. Bit grotty on the surface, but I would not trust the petrol tank anyway. There's another distributor cap. So two new distributor caps, new fan belt. Yeah, this looks really solid. So at the back there, we got Paul trying to unseize the rear drums so that we can push it back in later today. Although this car's not going to stay in here for very long. Meanwhile, I thought I'll have a quick look at the engine, because this was just resting on top, the air cleaner. As we said before, that someone started doing something to it, or the carb is absolutely box fresh. It looks like the distributor cap's pretty good, but we got the spares from what we could see back there. So I'm going to take the plugs out, lube down the bores of the plugs, maybe turn it over with the fuel pipe removed, see if we've got compression and stuff. We've checked and I'm pretty sure the shed key works on the ignition, but these have got a separate solenoid on the starter, so I think you can press the back of this from memory. So I'm going to do all that. Someone's put these plugs in using some sort of jackhammer. Oh, you bitch fighter. The plugs look good and they're new. And the car has been running. So maybe it wasn't running that long ago. Right, time for a bit of oil down the bores just as a precautionary method. While I'm doing that and while they're banging 7 shades out of the rear drums, remember to like and subscribe, yeah? Maybe leave me a comment. I dare you. While I'm letting the oil just soak down the bores, leave the plugs out because we'll spin the engine over without any compression. I'm just going to get ready to bypass the fuel system. As usual, I ignore what's going on in the tank. That's the flexi fuel line which goes from the back of the car, from the tank, into hard lines, to the fuel pump, and then all the way up into the mouth of the carb. So if I take it off there, I'll then put my own can of Hope with fresh fuel in straight from there. So we haven't got to worry about cleanliness or combustibility of petrol, theoretically. Right, I don't know if this is going to work, but we've got, if I turn this, by the way, this is not the ignition key. This is another padlock, random padlock key that we found, and it does turn the ignition of the Tina. So I'm going to turn, there, I get the generator light. Will we spin it over? Okay. Well, there we go. It's free. Let's see how much oil came out those bores. I'll try it now. No? Well, in which case, let's take the distributor cap off and we'll have a goosey gander at the...
There's a spare one in the boot, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I mean, because that's new, and that looks quite new, actually, doesn't it? So I'm just marking up the plug leads because that's a logical thing to do that I rarely do. We've taken the distributor cap off, which is pretty new. The points, which look quite new, and the condenser, which looks quite new. We're not getting any spark at the points, so we're going to dress them up with some emery cloth, and I'm going to dress up the connections onto the coil. There's a spare coil. We could try a coil at some point if we think, but once we've dressed those points and the rotor arm, we'll see if we get a spark. And if we don't get a spark at that point, well, don't know. Okay, we're now getting a spark at the points. So before we put all the plugs back in, we're just going to check to see if we get a spark at the plugs. And if we get a spark at the plugs, we put all the plugs back in, then we can introduce fuel. No.
No. We have no spark.
We have no spark at the plugs.
Brilliant spark.
That's a good spark.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it? So
Would you want to turn it over to see if the do you want to see if the points are open?
Go on then. Go on, do the...
Ready? Clear?
Yeah. Yeah, they were chattering open and closed.
Can do it again.
Did you see?
Yeah, go on again.
They're not
sparking.
They're not sparking. Recap time. Plugs back in. We have a spark. It's weak. We do wonder collectively whether or not the owner of this car has had ignition problems, given that there's 3 distributor caps, all of which are new. There's 2 coils lying around. There's numerous plugs and even a spare distributor. So is that a clue as to the fact that this has had a weak ignition problem? I don't know. But we've cleaned it all up as best as we can, and we're now going to introduce some fuel. So let's give it just a tiny tickle and we'll see if we get it stumbling. Music maestro. That's very slow. Okay, so we've got old school jump leads on a more modern Ford. I was going to say a new Ford, it's not new, it's more modern. Trying to revive the old Ford. Let's see if we get any stumbling at all. Choke on. Okay. So that's ridiculous. It's definitely, do you know what? It's definitely sucking hard.
Oh yeah,
through the
plenty of compression and
the compression's good.
Yeah.
So it's probably the start.
Compression's good.
Because it's been here such a long time, I think it's going to be a lot of not mechanical but electrical problems, connections and that.
Dressing up of connections and
The
stuff.
starter motor's got to have a C2,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, it's fundamentally all there. What's great about it is this.
You know, it's probably the nut on the back of the starter motor, because it's only a single lead from the
It
the solenoid, and it's probably filthy, dirty, corroded, and whatever.
You can
I
see
can see
it.
it.
Yeah, you can. I'm half tempted to just get a torch and dress the bugger.
Go on,
I
one
don't
more
like
go.
to admit defeat with these things.
One more go. You're right. Right, that's the right size.
Yeah,
It's just a question of holding it.
as Tim predicted.
Trouble is now, of course, you've got it on and off, so grab that. So I don't necessarily need that.
You're doing it by feel now, are you?
Yep.
You're that guy.
I'm that guy.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
it's got a bloody lock nut on it.
Right.
So off we come with this one, I think.
Kind of last ditch attempt really. Taken the contacts off the starter motor, dressed those up just to eliminate that. All the other contacts are clean, but it's still turning over really sluggishly. We've directly connected it just to eliminate any other wiring issues. So slow.
Oh well. Are we throwing the towel in?
I think we should throw the towel in, yeah. That's not a towel. Yeah, I think we're going to have to throw the lady knickers in on this one because the problem is it will be, as Tim suspected, it could be an old electrical problem which we could trace back for hours. I don't actually think it's a big problem, it's just time. So I'm going to have to say on this one, thank you for all your efforts, Paul. This car is way more solid than either of us thought it was. I mean, just look at the strut tops, look at the chassis. This is a really solid four-door, console badged early Cortina, so fair play to it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Late Break Show. If you want to subscribe, why not subscribe? Leave us a comment below, and when this car comes up for sale, which it will, I will put a link to it in the description, but also we will mention it first of all on the Late Break Show's social media. Thanks, bye, love you. Where are those knickers?